Hello, everyone. Welcome to the regular business meeting for the District of Squamish for Tuesday, November 5th. Holland Squallen, Clis Tilkmik, Tla Squamish Okmeo. Welcome to the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. And as always, we're just so happy to be guests here on this land of the Squamish Nation. Please be advised that this council meeting is being live streamed, recorded, and will be available to the public to view on the District of Squamish website following the meeting. If you have any concerns, please notify the corporate officer present at the meeting, which in this case would be Ms. Von Baloo. And can I have someone move adoption of the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor French, second by Councillor Anderson. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Our first order of business is a delegation, a proclamation request for Economic Abuse Awareness Day. Now, we don't have anyone speaking to this today or this year. This is something that's come to us before. I thought it was appropriate, as I found previous presentations we've received on this to be quite compelling. So I'll move that November 26, 2024 be proclaimed as Economic Abuse Awareness Day in the District of Squamish, second by Councillor French. I think often when we speak about all the different ways that abuse can and mistreatment of people can sort of manifest itself, I think this is a very, very powerful way that often gets overlooked. I think it's really important to shed some light on this situation. So I'm happy to support this proclamation. Any other comments on this particular item? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Pettingill and Greenlaw.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not sure if it's happy to support this. I guess it's important that we support this. We look at what's happening politically below our border down south and in Canada, I would say with some of the discussion in industry in our province and other places around. I think there's a lot of work we still need to do on gender-based violence, and this is one important piece of that. So it is important that we support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, thanks. I'm also unhappily supporting this, but I actually thought Councillor Pettingill was going to go to the erosion of women's rights south of the border, and hearing that rhetoric starting to percolate in our country is very disconcerting. And the other thing that like you said, it's something that's frequently overlooked. And I remember we were actually in Japan for this meeting, and when she spoke, it just illuminated so many things for me and made me think about how the housing crisis is influencing this issue, and how many people are kind of forced to stay in relationships unwantingly and dangerously, and sometimes at putting themselves at risk because they simply don't have financial options. So I think it's really important to raise awareness about this. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor French.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to point out that the Canadian Centre for Women's Empowerment is the organization behind this request, and it's the only Canadian national nonprofit organization that they came together, or that's advocating on this topic. And they came together in Ottawa, and they work towards advocacy, education, research, economic empowerment, and policy change. A quick statistic they shared with us: almost 95% of women who experience or have experienced some form of domestic violence have also experienced economic abuse. And that is one of the reasons why I'm supporting this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor French. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have consideration of unscheduled public attendance. This is where if a member of the public has a matter they wish to, that's urgent or emerging in nature, that they would like council to address prior to our next regular scheduled meeting, this would be your opportunity to present yourself. And see no one stepping to the plate for that. We'll move on. We have no public hearings this evening. We're on to next is a presentation around Section 57 notice, consideration of Section 57 notice for 40202 Skyline Drive. And as staff are getting set up for this, I'm just going to have a quick brief for council and the public as to how this piece will go. So Colin McCarthy, Manager of Building Services, and Andrea Stokes, License and Property Use Inspector, will provide a staff presentation regarding the Section 57 for 40202 Skyline Drive. Council will then have opportunity to ask clarifying questions and have discussion on the matter. The property owner or a representative will be given an opportunity to speak, and then it'll come back to council for further clarifying questions and consideration of council, just so everyone knows how this will go. I bought staff just enough time to get set up, so I will turn it over to them to run us through the presentation.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Colin McCarthy, Manager of Building Services. I'm with Andrea Stokes, License and Property Use Inspector, the District of Squamish. We supporting each other in this. Andrea led investigations and drafted the report, and I'm supporting her with the presentation. In any case, I will proceed. We're here to make a recommendation for the registration of notice on title for a property on Skyline Drive, and for the recommendation that the corporate officer be directed at her discretion to move to court injunction if necessary. The summary of this particular file, as you can see, began with an original complaint that came in July 2024, and this was related to, it came from the public. It was related to unpermitted construction, generally speaking. This is something that we will usually investigate and did so in this case. Inspection was conducted in August of 2024 by a building inspector and a licensed and property use inspector. Evidence of recent alterations were identified. Records were checked. There were no permits on record for any alterations, which created a total of 3 dwelling units, which was also identified on site. To date, Building Services has not received a building permit application to resolve these issues. At this time, the recommendations we'd like to make to council are to place a bylaw contravention notice on the land title to advise interested parties of these outstanding issues, and to instruct the corporate officer in their discretion to seek injunctive relief if a complete building permit application is not received by May 5th of 2025. And at this time, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Council, questions at this point? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
So we have legal non-conforming structures, basically, as I understand it, because they were built in such a way and then rules were subsequently changed. I guess what's leading us to believe this is not legally non-conforming, but is sort of more recent sort of and relevant contradiction of our various codes and bylaws and requirements?
Through the mayor, in my experience with legally non-conforming properties, these are properties that were in existence prior to records that we may have on our files, and the evidence found on site, of which I've seen photographic evidence, materials, for example, provide evidence that alterations were made subsequent to the well-known fire, at which time the records that we have for permitting don't exist prior to that date. So this was done after that time, and therefore we would have evidence of a permit application and of a permit if the alterations were undertaken compliant with the bylaw.
Okay, are you good for now? Or do you want to mull that over? I'll go around. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. I believe you made reference to a fire. Is there? I don't know anything about this. Is there information you can share about that?
It's what I'm speaking of is there's a limitation to the records at Municipal Hall. Councillor French is nodding now. Yeah, there was for those. I'll tell the story now. There was a fire at Municipal Hall back in the early 70s. For those that don't know, and we have a limit of where our paper records end. So often we do have to use evidence at the scene of almost anything to say, give us a rough idea of when something like a renovation had taken place. And often this is simply done just by looking at the materials used.
Reading the report and your presentation, the fire separation of kitchens is sort of one of the sort of trigger points. And this is part of the building code, not a zoning issue. So to me, it falls in my assessment. So this falls to sort of that category of life safety. Is there also through another process anything about, are these spaces occupied, or should we be concerned about the safety of the occupants in this time between it? Because I think the recommendation has a 6-month window to be well down the path of rectifying is sort of, I guess, a way to say, a way to paraphrase what's being proposed there, of rectifying the situation. But is there a sort of anything to like non-occupancy or anything like that part of this at this point? If so, or yes, and either way, why?
Through the mayor, at the mayor. The references in the report to specific things like existence or non-existence of fire separations were made in what was a general inspection to see what the state of the property is in, and was not intended to point out compliances or non-compliance, because that thorough investigation has not been completed. Normally, we try and leverage a voluntary compliance and get towards a permit application, in which case a property owner can provide a code compliant design and move forward with a permit process. Often what a property owner requests is a list of what's non-compliant on their property, so they can immediately go ahead and make those repairs, and that's not the way this process works. At the time, there was not any immediate life safety threats that were immediately obvious under this investigation that was done. It's always a balancing act when we investigate these circumstances, because we want to protect life safety, and that's our primary goal. But at the same time, we have been in situations where people simply have no other place to go. So we're continually balancing, when we make these type of investigations, what's appropriate. I believe we have seen circumstances where we have posted a do not occupy immediately. I can't confirm that, or there's been greater urgency. Balancing everything that was sort of understood in this case, this was the path that was chosen, and some time to bring the property into compliance is typical in these cases.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, I think, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around, there's lots of structures in Squamish where it seems people have converted garages to living spaces and so on, which in many cases I would understand is not compliant. And I think in many cases that those are quite old. Is this, and I'm just trying to understand, do we have a suggestion or evidence that this is a very recent renovation, and that's why it's attracting the attention or the concern? Or would sort of any case where there's a complaint, even if the renovation was 20 years ago, we'd be in a similar situation? I'm just trying to understand.
Thank you for the question, and through the mayor. My response to that would be that the renovation was more recent than the limitation on our records that I'm aware of. Our attention, to use the term you chose, was brought to this because of a complaint from the public. And a complaint of this nature would have us investigate in almost every circumstance. And evidence of what we commonly know as a single family home with multiple apartments in there where there's no record of a permit. And as far as the code is concerned, a secondary suite, as we understand that term, is the most lenient as the least code restrictions, and there's only one permitted in a home. In this case, there was one more. So there were some highlights to this one that chose us to pursue this path. Did that answer your question?
I think so. And then I'm just trying to understand homeowners would like a list of everything that needs to be repaired, whereas we sort of look at the complaint against our bylaws, against the status of what's there. And is that sort of the limit of our evaluation once work is done, or there just needs to be an application for more work and then that's evaluated against our bylaws at that point, and then that's how we figure out sort of going forward whether or not we can remove a notice?
Through the mayor, there's a lot packed in that question, so I guess the way that I'll answer that is a property owner has every opportunity to come forward and propose. What we do know is that there were apartments added to this property without permits. Now, any evidence at all that comes forward that something was permitted at the time that the home was built has not been provided to us at this point, and it would not have been permitted to have 2 apartments in that property. So based on those simple facts and the fact that it was done without a permit, that is the bylaw non-compliance we hope to address this evening, is the requirement for a permit and work being done without a permit. The specific code non-compliances would be addressed moving forward beyond this point. This is a starting point in many cases to bring this to compliance. As is sometimes if someone comes in immediately seeking guidance and seeking to avoid any action, bringing in a design or a proposal to avoid where we are today, that has in the past sort of diverted this process. This is simply a notice on title at this point, which can be removed. The discretion for council for the corporate officer to move ahead with the injunction is also discretionary, and actions and circumstances down the road would dictate how that happens.
And can you just clarify, were we to put a notice on title, what is involved in removing a notice?
That process I'm not entirely familiar with. Beyond this point, the presentation, that's something that the corporate officer undertakes. So are you able to speak to that? Thank you.
Yes, to remove a notice on title, it's through the land title office, and it's some paperwork that the local government has to submit, and then the section 57 is removed from title. So if the title's ever pulled, there won't be a record of the section 57 being registered. Yeah.
Okay. If there's no other questions, you go Councillor Greenlaw, and then I'd like to go to the proponent or the representative, and then we'll come back again.
Yeah, I just want to be clear on what we're saying. So my understanding from what you're saying is that there are no actions that can bring them under compliance in terms of having multiple suites. Is that correct?
Through the mayor, that is not correct. In fact, now that within that area of the community, actually, the R1 zone would allow multiple apartments. So I believe that this property could be made compliant. I suspect it would take some further alterations, as I don't know what the fire separations are in existence at this time. We sort of know generally what they are, and that there are some things that would need to be rectified in any case. But I think there would be a possibility that this could be undertaken. This sort of takes it to a stage where a property owner, should they want to undertake this, would engage a professional to help walk them through that. And then our department would do what we always do, which is review proposals and architectural drawings to determine whether the plan is is compliant with code and bylaw. They have the opportunity to step back to the beginning of the process, which would be achieve that permit.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so as I said earlier, I think this is a good opportunity to invite the property owner or their representative to address council. And I would, go ahead. You'll be at the podium here. And I did also want to note that the letter from your legal counsel also appeared in our, was received by council and appears in our agenda package for the official record as well, just so you know where we're starting from. So go ahead, you've got 5 minutes to address council.
Okay, thank you. Dear council, the district has made 2 recommendations for your vote. I'm asking you to delay this decision. I'm here. I want to make it right. I want to start the conversation with the district and see where we get in a few months and then vote on it again at that time. I'll give you a little bit of history. The complaint was that there's ongoing construction and too many people living in this home, and neither are true. I purchased the home in late 2019. I worked on it at the beginning of 2020. In fact, I even remember buying drywall from John. And it's been rented out since June of 2020. So there's no ongoing construction, and there's only 3 people that live in a 3,600 square foot home. Not too many people. The complaint was not legitimate. It was a personal attack. My tenant called me in the summer saying the district is walking around the house looking in all the windows based on this complaint. My tenant asked them to call me, offered my number. They were told, oh, we have it, but I received no phone call. The district requested access into my home. I provided prompt and full access. I received a letter from the district saying it looked like there was unpermitted work and that may cause issues with life and safety, but no real or specific information on what that was. October 3rd, I asked the district for specifics on what they had issues with and what is non-compliant. October 11th, the response is that I could request a building file to determine what is currently there compared to what they have on file, or I could just wait until a council meeting. So I requested the building file, and then I was told there isn't a building file. They're simply going off this complaint and the tax report. October 11th, I asked again for specifics on what they have issues with and didn't receive anything until October 24th, 11 days before this meeting. What is outlined in that letter I can address. I wasn't given a fair chance to address these items. I care about my tenants. I will do whatever it takes to make the suites safe. They are safe. These are good suites. I will do whatever it takes to make them safe. I just need to know specifically what they want done. Give me a chance to do it. One set of tenants I have is a young couple. They've been renting the same suite now for 4 years. I charge them way less than market rent. These are nice suites. I charge them $1,250, all inclusive, internet, hydro, everything. I've never raised the rent, not even once. Even though my mortgage payment changed significantly. I'm a good landlord. Squamish needs more landlords like me and affordable good suites like this. These are nice suites. They're safe suites. I see crap every day in my line of work. This is not it. I actually invite you as council to come and look at these suites. If you want them gone, I'll take them out. They're nice suites. I'm willing to address everything the DOS has issues with and whatever is unsafe or non-compliant. I need communication and time. If you vote in the district's recommendations, number 1, I won't be able to borrow money against the home to complete what they want me to complete. Number 2, if they physically come in and remove what they think I've done, and I'll go through the pictures in the letter that you sent me, which I didn't get till the 24th, most of that is not true. I didn't do most of that. They're assumptions. My tenants will be the real losers in this situation. One of my tenants is on a work permit and here until the end of May. The others won't be able to find a suitable rental in their budget. I can give notice to leave, but I'd rather try to work around my tenants and their needs. My wife and I always said we wanted to be part of the rental solution here, not the problem. Let me start the conversation with the district, see what they want me to do. Please push this decision off for a few months and let's see where we get. Now, I will address some things. I know you're saying that there's lack of fire. That's not true.
So you're addressing council, not our staff. It's okay. I know it's a weird thought exercise and it's not common, but you're addressing council, not staff directly. Thank you.
Got it. There is fire separation between the kitchens. There's 5/8. There's even a separation between walls and more 5/8 and soundproofing in between. There's fire separation. There's nothing that is unsafe about these suites. This is more of a procedural thing, and this is a pretty heavy-handed, swift thing to do that will ultimately devalue this property and put me in the district's, I'll be in their headlock. And to try to get it off of title, I don't know what it's going to take. The stuff they put on that letter, they said they think I've hacked into the foundation and added windows. I did not do that. I can prove it. I've got pictures from the original windows. I took a window out, I put one in. There's other things saying I didn't put a header in. That's how it was framed. This is how it was done. I didn't change any of that. They're safe suites. I would invite you to come look at them. And I'm serious about that. If you think that, I mean, I'm telling you, I see stuff every day that is unsafe. And I know the district even has like a list of hundreds of homes of unauthorized suites. Yet I feel like I'm being made an example of here, and process doesn't really make sense to me. Something
Okay,
is off.
you've hit your 5-minute mark. So thank you for that. Maybe I'll start this line of questioning for. Actually, do you have any questions for? Do we have any questions for the property owner while we're here? Not seeing anyone lining up for that. Thank you for your submission. I wondered about I guess speaking to I've dealt with a few of these Section 57s requests over the years, and they're all very unique. But could someone speak to normal process as far as time of between, I guess, receiving a complaint and arriving at council table? And just I want to make sure that we're following where we fall in our normal process on dealing with issues like such as this. I'm using the such as this to be kind of a general catch-all because the situations are always site specific, of course, but generally process, where do we stand in that?
Thank you for the question. I can speak to the ones I've been involved in over the years. And what I can say is that we make every effort to provide as much notice as possible, to let a property owner know when we have an agenda date, let them know as soon as possible when that is. And I can't speak to the legislative requirements, although I do believe that it speaks to fair notice, adequate notice, and perhaps our corporate officer could speak to that a little bit more. Dependent upon the nature of the non-compliance, or what we understand to be the non-compliance, we may be more urgent in some cases. As there wasn't I believe it was back in July. You've got the timeline in front of you. Yeah, it was in July, I think, when this was first when the property owner was first made aware of this, and there was not a lot of information came to light beyond that point. So the information that was the date and the information that we had and that we used to come to where we are was given to the property owner early on, and it was essentially reiterated 2 weeks ago when the final draft of the report to council was sent.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
Would staff comment on any issues or complications that would arise from deferring these actions for a few months in good faith that the homeowner will address the concerns of the district?
Through the mayor, my only comment would be that we want to start the process and do our due diligence in we're leveraging, I suppose one might say, to have that homeowner start the process and come to us so that we can assist them in ensuring that this property is safe. So moving that down the road any further, I can't speak to any further risk, but I think that in any case, extending it may also exacerbate any risk that exists. That's all I can speak to that.
Thanks.
Looking at the staff recommendation, it's sort of a two steps. One is the notice on title, and the second is move to commence legal action in, is that 6 months, May 2000, yeah, May 5th, 2025. Do we have the ability to combine those timelines to make those things both happen on May in that time, which would give the tools to, which would give a bit of space, but also not require this to come back to council should it need to advance? You see a risk with that outside of, just to further quantify the ask of Councillor Greenlaw into like a specific time frame? Can those things be combined, or does staff see those two as two distinctly different steps that should happen separately with space between?
Thank you for the question. These recommendations are fairly typical of the approach that we take in these circumstances, and I believe that council is free to make a motion for any action they choose appropriate to take.
Okay, thank you. Council, any other questions? We do have a staff recommendation before us, and I know we all have been mulling this over. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Penningill.
Am I correct in thinking there's really no other tool that would allow sort of forewarn a prospective purchaser were that to happen, but wouldn't interfere with bank financing to get work done?
Through the chair, I can't speak to that. That's another tool. If there's another tool for us to leverage compliance, there may be with fines or another avenue but I can't speak to how it might affect the financing. This is a standard procedure, as I understand, goes on in municipalities throughout BC. We've used it multiple times. That's all I can say about that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, that's a concern of mine, that if we do put a notice on the title, like I think the homeowner has a very valid point that there will be difficulties in any kind of increase in loaning that may be required to address any issues that the that council has. So
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Penningill.
Can staff clarify or remind me what would be expected, or what would be a demonstration from staff's perspective that progress was being made on the issue?
Through the mayor, most typically a building permit application that includes drawings and the documents typical of that submission. That's sort of been the threshold at this point.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Vilnius.
Just to add to what Mr. McCarthy has noted as milestones in compliance, the building permit application would be the first step. Then the review follows, then the approval of the permit, then inspections. And I think it's the inspections piece is where there's things happening with the project. So there's actual progress beyond just getting to the approval process, which is really important.
If a application was received today, what's processing time generally for a high quality application? I'm just trying to understand what this May 5th date means in a practical sense. Is there, how much of that is that process we just heard from Mr. Vilnius?
Thanks for the question. I think that we're certainly, without having things open in front of me to check those numbers, I think we're certainly less than 8 weeks for something like that. And yeah, I would say we're certainly less than that.
Yeah, thank you. That's the rough number that I was looking for. That's enough detail. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor French.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, you're asking about a high quality application. I'd like to know about a low quality application. So homeowner who has no drawings, but is committed to the process. It would said homeowner who has no plans, very little information, would they be advised to get the application in and then work towards fulfilling to make it a high quality application, or get the materials together and then apply? Could you share thoughts on those two scenarios?
Thank you for the question through the mayor. Our standard and the threshold, we do not accept applications without supporting documents and without drawings. As you can imagine, in the effort to get applications in as soon as possible, we would be accepting simple application forms with multiple applications.
I think I have the makings of a resolution here, a path forward. I think it's essentially so we have the staff recommendation that includes and included in that is the language around the date of May 5th, 2025. And I'm thinking that if that language is added to the first item as well, so both of these things happen at the same time to provide 6 months to substantively move towards compliance, which is essentially what this says, then I think that I was trying to figure out how to word that exactly. So I'm going to look to our maybe the hive mind here if someone wants to help me, but maybe it's just adding that District of Squamish bylaw should compliance not be achieved by May 5th, 2025 to the end of the first item. Just use that last line in the first item. Does everyone follow me? They're looking at the recommendations. Yeah, go ahead.
I do. I just wonder if there should be a date for like commencing for compliance versus like completing it, because maybe 6 months. I don't know what building times are.
The language has in their discretion to commence legal action is what it says there. So I think we've heard that that threshold, what that threshold is different. It's maybe not to have the repairs completed, but to have permitted and well down that path. And I know that. So I'm hoping that covers it off. I don't know if I'm open to an amendment, or another motion, because no one seconded this motion that I'm working on out loud here, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if there should also be a closure date to it then, so that it doesn't go on until like 2028 kind of thing as well.
I think our staff would be coming back to us or executing this if it was to drag. But that's at discretion, and that's the language is in the motion as well.
And then just one further question. Would it come back to council before it went to any legal action?
That wouldn't be my preference. So I'll make that motion. If there's a seconder, then we can debate it. Seconded by Councillor French. I'll speak to this briefly. I think these situations are they're always different and have unique challenges. I really appreciate the challenges in addressing this and having all the tools available too, not just the construction tools, but the financial tools, I think is an important consideration. And however, I think it's important that we take action when things like this come to our attention. I have a high level of confidence that there is a path forward on this, and that it can happen in a timely fashion. And I do appreciate the consideration to the tenants. As a renter myself, I think that's commendable. But it is important that the spaces that are being provided are safe, and it's our building department's role to ensure that happens. So thank you for bringing this forward, and I hope this strikes a reasonable balance, although it's I understand it's not the best outcome for everybody involved. Councillor French.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Herford. And this conversation has me thinking back to the most recent example that I can think of, where we had a Section 57 in the Garibaldi Estates, where the homeowner came to a similar meeting and basically said, yeah, I made a mistake. It was an error. And we worked with that person in this chamber to come up with a solution that is somewhat similar to what I think we're about to land on here. And in all of these cases, I just can't help but think that the BC Building Code exists for good reason, and property owners are required to apply for our building permits so that situations like this one are avoided. And what I've heard tonight is that maybe this one's a little bit complicated. However, it doesn't underscore the importance of getting a building permit, which is not an onerous thing for people to do. So I think that we've landed on a good compromise, and that's why I'm supporting this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Greenlaw?
Yeah, I'll support this motion. As someone who generally moves at a glacial pace, I know I would have difficulty responding as quickly as was anticipated in this case. So the proponent seems eager to come under compliance, and I would like to support healthy tenant-landlord environments and relationships. So I'm happy to support this motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn in different ways on this one. There is the concern of, you know, if the homeowner, and this is not meant to impugn anyone because I don't, just sort of dealing with the information presented to me today. But, you know, you don't want someone to decide, oh, it's too much, I'm just going to flip it. And then someone else ends up with the problem in their lap, which would be a reason to put the Section 57 on sooner. But I also understand for someone who is wanting to operate in good faith and so on, it's tough to get contractors and, you know, things take time. It's a little different. Most of the other Section 57s, I recall, it was much more clear that the current owner was the one that did the unpermitted works. In this case, that's a lot less clear, and it doesn't sort of make me comfortable leaving possible life safety issues. But at the same time, it's, you know, I can imagine if you bought a home in good faith and had an inspection and have owned it for 5 years, and then this drops on your lap, it's kind of like, holy heck, how do I deal with this? So I also have some sympathy here. So all that to say, I'm uncertain with this one, but I am willing to support the resolution.
Thank you. And Councillor Anderson, did I see your hand down there? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I support the resolution with a little bit of reluctance. But the presentation we've had from staff and our discussion is a part of this process. And hopefully it's a part of the process that has brought some better clarity to, for example, some of the issues and questions posed in the correspondence from Mr. Weeb's counsel. I do not think, though, that the purpose of a Section 57 process is to frustrate work towards compliance. I think just the opposite. We need to have faith in that process towards that end. Again, the issue of bylaw non-compliance, we have a person within the real estate industry here, I'm sure is listening and will be acting intently. And but we must emphasize that is the core issue of bylaw non-compliance. I'm happy to go with the present accommodation, though. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for the presentation and all your work on this file. So next up, we have a development variance permit, DVP number 27. This is for Garibaldi Springs Phase 2 and is a height variance. I'm going to put it over to our staff, Jesse Fletcher, to run us through the presentation.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jesse Fletcher, Manager of Current Planning. I'm here this evening to introduce for Council consideration Development Variance Permit number 00027 for Phase 2 of the Garibaldi Springs development. DVP 27 is associated with Phase 2 of the Garibaldi Springs development. The development permit for this phase, DP 587, was approved on July 18th, 2023. DVP 587 included a height variance for the entirety of the development permit, allowing the height to exceed the zone maximum. However, it became apparent during building permit review that the height was incorrectly calculated at development permit and a larger variance is required. Phase 2's location in the development overall is identified in red on the image on the screen. The image on the right shows the location that is impacted by the height variance. The Phase 2 proposal consists of 38 buildings. The proposed height variance only applies to buildings number 30 through 38, which are at a lower elevation than all other buildings and located in a flood hazard area. In order to meet the flood construction level, the proposal includes raising the finished grade and proposing a design that conforms to the required FCL. The applicant proposes to vary the permitted height from 10.68 meters to 13.29 meters. This is because the original height calculation was not taken from the average existing grade as specified in the zoning bylaw. As per the zoning bylaw, building height is measured from the lower of finished or natural grade. And again, in the original application, height was incorrectly measured from the finished grade, and a new variance is now being presented for consideration. Standard district processes were followed for this application. The project was posted to the district's development showcase, and a development sign was posted at the property. Notifications delivered to residents within 100 meters of the property in alignment with district policy. No comments were received. Staff recommend approval of DVP number 27.
Thank you very much. With any development variance permit, the public has opportunity to make a submission, as does the proponent. I don't see anyone, for those watching at home, there is no one in council chambers. So I don't, unless I'm required to go through the script as a matter of procedure. No, I'll just ask if anyone's joining us online that may require that. Okay, so we don't have anyone here, either the proponent or the applicant, sorry, or any members of the public to speak. So I will not read my speech to that. Council, questions on what we've heard so far? Go ahead, Councilor Peniel.
So in terms of the error is, I would consider it a floor, an extra floor. I should be careful using that word extra. But in terms of the original architectural diagrams or drawings or whatever we had and what's there now, is there any difference in number of floors, or is it simply basically the same buildings, but the height numbers are asked to be adjusted?
Thank you for that question. Through the mayor, there is no change from the original drawings as approved by DP 587. Again, just the height was taken incorrectly from the wrong grade.
Okay, yeah, Councilor French.
Yeah, thanks. My understanding this is at the bottom of a slope. So I'm wondering, will this additional height impact the views of any units, either existing already or being constructed in the area above?
Thank you for this question. As analyzed in the original development permit, the height of these buildings do not impact any of the adjacent buildings.
Okay, and the adjacent buildings are yet to be constructed? Or are they under construction or occupied? I guess, what's the status of those adjacent buildings?
Thank you for that question. The adjacent buildings are in for building permit. I believe the building permit has just been approved for some of those.
Okay, thank you. Staff recommendation. Councillor French moves a staff recommendation. I'll second that. You want to speak to it?
Yeah, just quickly, it seems clear to me this is one of those situations where some humans made some human errors, and we're in the process of correcting that. So happy to support the direction we're taking.
Thank you. Other comments? Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, this seems like just correcting a simple math error. Would have been a different thing if we had seen different looking buildings, but that doesn't appear to be the case. So happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you. I'll be supporting the recommendation as well. The flood control, the FCL in flood control level across the municipality rears its head every once in a while, and this is one of those ways. So, as Councillor Pettingill rightly pointed out, if this is if what we've seen here was different substantively like an extra floor occupying this air quotes extra space, that would be a totally different discussion, but that's not what this is. And I'm happy to support this. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, council, next we're on to consent agenda. Is there anybody like to pull anything from any of the letters or minutes from or anything from the consent agenda before we go further? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
Yes, Mayor Herford, I wish to pull for discussion under B, correspondence received for information, item number 2 and item number 5. That's Ms. McJanet's correspondence or report to council and the letter from J. Smack.
Okay. Anyone like to pull anything else? Or move the consent agenda is the other piece. I'll move the consent agenda, seconded by Councillor French. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And we'll deal with B2 and 5 at the appropriate point later in the agenda, which is coming to us shortly. We have no consideration of council committee recommendations. We're on to bylaws. Consideration of first 3 reading for District of Squamish Council Procedure Bylaw number 3032, 2024. And I'll turn it over to staff to introduce themselves on the topic.
Hello, my name is Melissa Pombluto. I am the Director of Corporate Administration, and today I'm presenting District of Squamish Council Procedure Bylaw 3032, 2024 for council consideration of first, second, and third reading. The presentation will include a brief overview of procedure bylaws and the objectives of the current update, similar to what council saw on September 3rd at the Committee of the Whole meeting, and a review of the changes to the bylaw since the committee reviewed on September 3rd. So overview, the requirement to establish a procedure bylaw is prescribed in the community charter and is required to include information regarding how meetings are conducted, how decisions are made and recorded, how participants are involved in meetings, meeting administration, including how meetings are scheduled and notice requirements. Council procedure bylaws assist in providing clarity and transparency to staff, council, and the public regarding how meeting procedures are administered and the council decision-making process. But that said, procedure bylaws can be tailored to meet the specific needs of a municipality. The objectives of this update included modernizing the district's current bylaw and improving the usability. This included separating out complex clauses and changing word choice in some sections. Several clauses no longer align with current district process, so they are addressed by legislation or were of an operational nature, so they've been removed. New clauses have been incorporated to provide guidance on for specific procedural issues or situations. So since September 3rd, staff incorporated several changes, and I'll go through the primary ones. All of the changes can be found in attachment 2 of the information provided to council. So the first change was to section 4.1 regarding acting mayor appointments and section 5.3 regarding the regular business meeting schedule. Language was added to specify that the last possible opportunity for council to approve both of those things was the last regular business meeting in December. And so they were done in conjunction to make sure that both were aligned. And the second change was the electronic council meeting, section 5.8. Staff recommend adding, well, actually, we didn't recommend, council requested that criteria was added regarding when an electronic council meeting would be called. And so we've included language that specifies when both the chair is unable to attend and when a quorum of council are unable to attend in person. We also removed reference to the corporate officer and the chief administrative officer being able to call an electronic business meeting. And this was request of council. Closed meetings, section 7.5, and rules of debate, section 9.25. Both of these sections have been added back into the bylaw at the request during the committee meeting. Clause 7.5 is very similar to clause 7.2 that's in the current procedure bylaw. The only change is that staff recommend bringing closed motions forward annually rather than quarterly. And the primary reason for this is that our practice is that most of our closed motions that can be brought forward, we do in the moment when council is considering the motion. So we actually don't have a lot of holdover closed motions that haven't been brought into the open like we would have in the past. So we thought proposing one comprehensive review would be more efficient than doing quarterly reviews. Clause 9.25 is exactly the same as clause 10.2 in the current bylaw, bylaw 2099. The next section is section 9.30 through 9.34, and this is conduct at meetings. Feedback from the committee related to the conduct of meetings section was for clear language regarding the expectations of council, staff, and the public. Staff proposed adding section 9.30 to clarify the expectations of staff and the public. Staff also suggests changing the language in sections 9.33 and 9.34 to clarify the chair's authority to maintain decorum during the meeting. And the big one, opportunities for public comment. The primary change is in section 10.2. Staff recommend including stronger language that addresses requests to appear if they pertain to zoning bylaw amendments that are prohibited from public hearing. This is to ensure that the district's process regarding public hearings is consistent with provincial legislation and to reduce the risk of a procedural challenge resulting from public comments in these types of situations. And we've changed section 10.1b to reflect to remove reference to when public hearings are prohibited and only reflect zoning bylaws when a public hearing is optional. And then section 10.3 has been added to address topics that might arise that are outside the jurisdiction of the district, and that's for council consideration, of course. So the staff recommendation today is that council give first, second, and third reading to District of Squamish Council Procedure Bylaw 3032/2024. If the bylaw receives first 3 readings, the next step will be to put notice in the local paper on November 12th and 21st as per our legislated requirements. And the bylaw will likely be listed on the December 3rd regular business meeting agenda for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, questions about this? I have a few, so I'm happy to start if everyone else is mulling. And I'll do that as no one shot their hand up. The piece around public hearings, I really appreciate that language there, but I wondered about the public hearings that are optional, where council has chosen not to. Does allowing unscheduled public attendance to speak to those agenda items, is that not the same as one where we're not allowed to have a public hearing? Are we not then have the same level of risk as far as now we're having a public hearing, even though we decided as a body not to on the particular item? Do you follow me is the first question. Second is what's the difference between those two?
Absolutely, I follow you. And yes, the same procedural risk would apply. And Jonas, you can jump in here, but normally if a bylaw that is where a public hearing is optional, it's on the agenda for first 3 readings. And at that time, council has discretion to give only first 2 readings to a bylaw so that a public hearing can then subsequently be scheduled. So I think there's discretion for council to use that phrase in the procedure bylaw where if we did have a lot of people turn up requesting to speak to a specific issue, council has the discretion to schedule a public hearing.
Right. So we could direct them to their best course of action, maybe to, in their unscheduled public attendance, request council to have a public hearing on the matter. That's sort of the differentiation between the two. Okay, that makes some sense. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, just sticking to the same area. My thought would be to strike 10.1A because I think 10.3 better articulates our intent there. And so it just seems a bit contradictory. So I wonder if striking 10.1A makes sense. And then for 10.1 in general, the remaining things, some of them seem to me like these, the word should be must. Other ones, the word should be should. And then there's one or two where, may is the right word. And I'm just wondering, we're using the word may right now, but for some things like, promotion of a third party business, like we're just not allowed to do that. And so may feels a bit weird there and might give me the impression of like, well, if I push really hard, I can get my business promoted. So is there value in sort of clarifying which are a little more optional versus like, it's just no way?
If council chooses, that list can certainly be separated to include items that are discretionary versus items that must be declined. At the September 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting, staff left with the impression that council wanted more discretion around which items to around this list and considering the items included on this list. So that's why we've gone with the language that you currently see here, but we could absolutely separate it out if that's the will of council.
Yeah, and I had a question for you if you want to go back through your rationale, or follow up to that, but I also wanted to just, if you could run through the rationale. I didn't have the section in front of me when you spoke about it. I'm sure it made sense. I just didn't have the section in front of me. So if you could run us through that again after you do your follow up or when you see fit.
Sure. Yeah. And just for clarity, I think the piece where I wanted more discretion was specifically on what I think is covered in 10.3, which is, I think there are things that it's worthwhile us hearing about. We may choose to advocate or lobby on. And so that's the one piece I think most concerned about. For the remainder, it seems that some in 10.1, some it's things we shouldn't do. Some of them are things we must not do. And then like the should seems to be sort of a general best practice is one bucket of should. And the other bucket of should is just like, that's our policy. And we're much more free in that bucket. The should, it's like, well, you can technically do it, but you really shouldn't. And then there's the like legal must not. It feels to me like those three buckets are important, but maybe I'm just overthinking this.
Yeah, it's at council's discretion is the piece. If we want to articulate to the public, are we articulating to ourselves or to the public in this particular regard? Because that our discretion is a very broad catch-all to have lots of leeway, but also we want to set and manage expectations. So I actually like having 10.1A and is it 10 10.3. I think those things actually speak to each other to set the expectation of what the member, the person wishing to speak to this to the matter may expect. And I think it's important. It's an important distinction. But the difference between the legal, like that category of like we just can't, which is related to an issue for which a public hearing, like that's maybe one, or there's other ones. Do you see value in delineating those further?
Absolutely. I think that that would provide a lot of clarity to the public, and it would eliminate the need for council to debate those requests, because it's clearly articulated in the bylaw who we will hear and what topics we won't hear. So, but it will limit council's ability to make those determinations in the moment, right? So we could go quite narrow, or we could leave it more broad.
I think that the discretion piece, I find sometimes we think we're being more limiting with by going very prescriptive, but then we actually take out a bunch of the nuance in there by doing so. So I think, I don't know, I don't think I necessarily want to go more prescriptive than this, because I think we have to be very prescriptive if we're going to nail that. That's just sort of my general take on it, but maybe we'll go around with any other questions, and we'll sort of mull this piece. And I'm glad this piece is getting attention, honestly, because I've found it challenging in this room. Yeah, go ahead, Melissa first.
I'd also like to add that this will be council's first go with language like this in their procedure bylaw, and there's always the discretion to amend the bylaw if it isn't working, or if council sees value in creating more prescriptive or looser language around something. So it isn't set in stone. There are options.
Thank you. Does staff, I'll go to you next, Councillor Penning, but does staff sort of track these, like when someone makes a request to appear as a delegation or a member of the public or unscheduled public attendance, that sort of thing, sort of keep track of how those interactions went to help inform this work? Is that something that happens formally or otherwise?
We don't track it formally, but definitely anecdotally. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
I guess, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me, it just seems like some of these, I wonder if there's a way to shorten the list and, a statement, council will not contemplate anything it can't legally consider. And then there's a few other things which it probably shouldn't, but council may at their discretion, which is, I think, what we're trying to get at with this list is like trying to come up with a list of like best practices you don't, but technically you could. Anything it's not lawful, you just shall not. And does that help to me? Because it feels like there's a few things in here that just, there's no point in spending half hour debating it, because we just can't, we can't hear about someone's, privacy stuff in the.
Was that a question to staff or to the rest of your council colleagues?
I guess council colleagues, I think, like, it just, to your point about expectations, I don't want to set people's expectations that some of these things that we can't discuss, we might entertain discussing.
Okay. I wonder if that's as simple as a request to appear as a delegation may be declined by the mayor, may be declined by council, like at their discretion, or will be declined by, like. Oh, okay. I see where you're going. Is it that simple of a language change? But anyways, I'll go. Did I see your hand, Councillor Anderson? No. I think we need to resolve this piece. I do take that staff's point that this is a starting point and for us to work with, and it's more guidance than we've ever provided the public on these matters. So I don't know. I feel quite comfortable with the balance, acknowledging that it's unlikely to be perfect or catch whatever the next nuanced ask is that just doesn't quite fit. So The risk, I think, of being more prescriptive is it takes away our ability for the things that don't quite fit but should, and similarly, and same on the other side. So I think this is actually a fair balance. I don't know if it's a deal breaker for me but I'm open to hearing more. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just, and it's sort of, it's all in the same ballpark, but 10.1J says we may decline hearing about something in closed. And as I understand, we'd be in all kinds of legal jeopardy if we started listening and hearing about closed things, or things that must be considered in a closed. And so we've put like a must not in the things that we may decline hearing. One of the other things we may decline hearing is something outside of the jurisdiction of Squamish. And then in 10.3, we say, but if it's outside the jurisdiction of Squamish and it's related to advocacy efforts, then we may hear. So it's like, well, wait, are you saying you can or can't do these things? I'm confused.
Again, is that to staff? Is that to
I think
staff or
that's-
for council to wrestle with? I'm just want to make sure that we're
Yeah,
the plot.
I guess I would say is if we're going to generally leave the language of 10.1, I think it's more important that we pull 10.1A out because it's already covered. And it's when you take the whole of 10.1 with some of the things that are certainly not allowed, then there's that real strong rub with 10.3 and 10.1A. And so I think it sets us having almost this exact debate next time one of these topics comes up before us. And so let's sort of be clear now on our decision and move forward.
When I think about outcomes, I find that when I'm having conversations with the public on things, it's helpful to categorize which category we're operating in, whether it's something that we have direct control over, and then they're asking us to do something that we control completely. In that other bucket of like, can you help advocate to another order of government or another entity on this matter? So I appreciate having that filter. So it really helps frame the conversation as to what a reasonable expectation is. So I like the broader the broader language around that piece, but is the duplication necessary? That's the question to me. I like your approach maybe, but I think maybe you add subject to 10.3 on the back end of A. Like let's just talk about, like, put it front and center, not make it live in multiple places. Is another way to approach that. I'm going to ask, that'll be a question for staff. As far as best practice, I'd like these things to speak to each other. Is it better to have, like, does that make sense, or is it better for it to live in one place exclusively, or where do we mark that, hey, another piece here may apply? Because there's likely other pieces in this policy that apply to any action. So how do we highlight that, or how do we address that in a document like this as far as best practice is considered?
In this bylaw in particularly, we've been using subject to and then referencing the section. So if you'd like to keep both in, we can include the subject to language.
Yeah, I'd like to add on 10.1A, the subject to 10.3. I think that accomplishes this, does that maybe a different way of getting there, but does that address your concerns enough, Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, I think that adds a little more. I think that's better. If we don't just strike 10.1A, that would make it acceptable, I think.
I think it would help frame the conversation that if someone has a matter that, would like us to advocate for healthcare to the province or something like that they know what they're asking. They're not coming here asking us to do, just as an example, right? Asking us directly, because it should be kind of called out there. So I like that change. Anybody else on any other section on this, or any other section of this? And I'm glad this section is getting some thought, because it's been a challenge. Yeah, go ahead.
There's just a couple places where we say now mayor or acting mayor, blah, blah, blah. But usually our practice is, or if acting mayor's not, then acting, if not acting, and so we don't go to all that detail. Is that sort of sufficiently implied, or do we need to articulate it to be inclusive of all those cases?
Or is the acting as we refer to it in conversation, make them the acting mayor at that point in this reference?
Section 4.4, I think that's the intention around section 4.4, is to designate the acting mayor if neither the mayor or the acting mayor are available.
So that says that the next month's acting mayor designate will chair the council meeting, but there's other spots in the document that refer to the acting mayor. I think is what counts. Is that where you're coming from, Councillor Pettingill? Like not exclusively just chairing the meeting, but other actions in the procedure bylaw?
Yeah, and I might sort of tack on and so on or whatever at the end to say, because there's acting until we're like out of councillors. Just to, it hasn't happened too many times, but we have run into a few cases where into the third or fourth acting, and just don't want our procedure bylaw to say, oh, well, we can't do this because.
So you're speaking to like selecting the acting mayor further down the list, which I think is worthwhile. Like, and I don't know if we want to say and so on, but that I don't know if that's the best language for this, but I understand what you're getting at. But to me, it's not just chair the council meeting. It might be take other actions. I'd have to review it again with that in mind. Are there other spots where we mention it? Like where else do we mention the role of the acting mayor besides chairing meetings? Because I know that the mayor's authority would extend to the acting mayor if the mayor wasn't present. So how do we capture that if not here?
Section 4.2 highlights that the acting mayor has the same power as the mayor and must fulfill the responsibilities of the mayor in their absence. If council chooses, we could change the language in 4.4 to be more reflective of that language for the acting mayor.
So you're proposing combining 4.4 and 4.2? No,
Keeping them separate,
but
just changing the language in 4.4.
Does that, you like that, Councillor Pettingill? I was curious, as I didn't think I had as many questions about this as now the conversation is advancing. But when I read this, as the mayor in 4.2, the council member designated as acting mayor has the same power as the mayor and must fulfill the responsibilities of the mayor in their absence. How is that defined? Like I can think of times where the mayor is not physically available, but is also available electronically versus like how is that clearly passed? And I'm thinking about in an emergency response or something like this, how do we understand where that lies, and is that worth exploring, or is it feels non-defined?
It is a little bit non-defined. The community charter definitely has language around the responsibilities of the acting mayor. I can't quote what those responsibilities are right now. Generally, our practice in Squamish is that if we can't get a hold of the mayor for some reason, and it is of a time-sensitive nature, staff will use their discretion if we can't reach out to the acting mayor to come in and fulfill an obligation. Maybe it's signing, or maybe mostly it's signing, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a huge risk there, and I don't want to, have to report my whereabouts at every moment. But at the same time, I'm just curious how that try to put on the like worst case scenario lenses when we look at these things. So, okay, I'm happy. I'm fine with that. Anything else? So the two pieces that we've modified, one was adding some language in that 10, was it 10.1 or that section 10, sorry, where is it? What's that? Sorry, 10A. 10.1A. And then your suggestion back here for, what was the language on that, the change for that acting mayor piece?
Would be
Decided it wasn't and so on, but
no, no. I think if council was interested in making the change, we could incorporate the council member designated as the acting as the next month's acting mayor designate has the same power as the mayor to fill their say responsibilities in their absence, something along those lines. Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
This is when it doesn't pay to be a programmer, but I would like to author that so that it just goes down the chain until we're out of counselors. And I just imagine like some folks on the way back to a meeting from, from wherever they're stuck on the highway. The way we said now is none of them can chair the meeting because they're not in person. So it's the acting is the one that can get the meeting rolling, and we can go and let's just not say, oh, well, we can't hold the meeting tonight because some people are stuck on the highway. And yeah, it's an edge case, but
Just point out that Councillor Pettingill often drives a group of councillors to Pemberton for meetings. So I don't know what you have planned for us, Councillor, but it's a fair point. So yeah, how do we capture that and so on in a legal way? Because I understand that, and occasionally the person that has acting mayor duties has made arrangements to be more available in the month and so on, but for whatever reason isn't. But that same obligation doesn't sit with the person that's going to be up next month, so then they're not available. Like I think that's a rare but real piece, and I would like to solve that a bit further down the line. Then would you like some time for this one, or do we do like, I know we've got consideration of readings. Do we sort of provide this feedback and give a reading and have it come back with language that satisfies that general concern? Because I don't think we need to wordsmith it at this point unless we're going all the way across all three readings. Is that correct?
Yeah, council has the discretion to give first two readings. We can change the language and then bring it back for a third reading and then adoption. Yeah. Having some ideas around language, how you would like to see acting mayor listed in there would be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I was trying to narrow down to what we can do. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Pettingill.
yeah, I'm happy with that approach. And I would just, something like using the first available counselor from this upcoming schedule of acting mayors chronologically, or something to that effect.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in on wordsmithing this. I'm looking at outcome. As long as we we're not limited by the procedure bylaw to continue the practice that we have had of acting until we find someone that until someone's available to perform the duties. At a certain point, you run into quorum. So if acting's not available and acting's not available, and the mayor isn't available in the first place, yeah.
There's language in
Yes, please. I'll give you a microphone.
So the community charter says if both the mayor and member designated under subsection 1 are absent from a council meeting, the members present must choose a member to preside.
That's easier. That's a lot easier. Okay, and then this, the same issue exists, so with signings and so on. Is that anything that we need to concern ourselves with? And that doesn't covered in this procedure piece to the same extent. Like we're okay there. Okay. So we'll eliminate that area of concern, or would we like that language explicitly? I know that the charter is overarching, everything we do needs to sit underneath the charter, but can we pull that language and put this? Yeah, so use that just to cite that directly.
Yeah, so include the language as it's listed in the charter.
That's in
Yeah,
the charter.
absolutely.
Great. So I'm going to move first two readings with the with the change to include the charter section. But what was the number of I've been all over this document now. 4.4. Is it 4. Yeah, 4.4, I think it is, that would add the language to 4.4 from the section, what of the community charter? Section 130? From section 130 of the community charter. And then to add on 10. Sorry. Yeah.
I wonder if we might just simplify the motion by asking staff to come back for third reading, incorporating changes discussed.
I also make sure we articulate the changes so we're clear on them.
Very good.
So we have the first one, and the second one is adding on 10.1A, adding what subject to 10.3 was what we decided the language was. Okay, so I'm going to move that. Sorry, my motion involved some conversation between. Are you seconding that, Councillor French? Councillor Pettingill, can I get you to second that? Thank you. I'll be brief now because we've given this some time. Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation, and it is interesting to look at these things through worst case scenario lens every once in a while. But I do think that this is actually a big step forward, and I've been looking for this guidance around, particularly around requests to appear and delegation requests. And we have had some challenges recently with the unscheduled public attendance mechanisms, particularly with the new changes that we've seen to the housing regulations. So I'm happy to see this come forward, and thank you, staff, for all your work on it, and council for all the conversation. Any other comments, Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, I think this sort of discussion we just had is probably what many people imagine council meetings are like, and why they have no interest in watching them or participating. But I think we do a lot of other things, and this is really so important, especially when things get difficult to, I feel like, to keep us all on the rails, heading in a sort of a fair and consistent and hopefully understandable direction. So I think it is important, although it may seem like a dry conversation. And so I appreciate the attention to it. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor French.
Thanks, Mayor Herford. Yeah, this was a nerd conversation I didn't see coming, but I'm glad we had it. The previous or the current existing procedure bylaw has served us well until it kind of didn't serve us super well with some changes. So making these alterations is totally appropriate. I thought that what staff brought to us was strong, and think we've strengthened it a little bit tonight. So I look forward to seeing what comes to us for third reading and final approval.
Marginal gains, I think, is what that's called, but still worthwhile. Seeing no other hands for comment, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you so much. All right. So now we have we have some adoptions, council, and as per normal, we don't have presentation with these. These are things that need the final touch to get over over the line. So first up, we have the District of Squamish Fees and Charges Bylaw, number 2012-2007. This is amendment bylaw relating to business license fee updates and is number 3106-2024. Looking for someone to move adoption by Councillor French, seconded by, I will second that. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next one is District of Squamish Land Development Procedures Bylaw, number 2632-2018 Amendment Bylaw. This is a delegation alignment and is number 3117-2024. I will move adoption on that. Councillor French seconds. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have no staff reports or late agenda items. We have no correspondence action requested, but we do have correspondence referred from the consent agenda. So we'll go back to remember the numbering of these. This is item 7B2, which was Ms. McJanet's letter regarding the minor amendments to the SLRD regional growth strategy. And then we'll discuss number 5, which is Ms. Smack's letter from regarding the main repiping project. So I will go to Councillor Anderson. You pulled these. Would you like to speak to the first one? We'll deal with them individually and then so go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Herford. Ms. McJanet's correspondence forwarded to us for information is a letter of response to the SLRD Regional Growth Strategy Minor Amendment Review, which is underway. I wish to draw attention to one of the items in the attached letter, a suggestion made under climate action amendments. Firstly, there's a suggestion under 11.3J to add coastal ecosystems, that is, to quote it, for example, blue carbon in marine estuaries, tidal marshes, etc. Blue carbon in our estuary area has been the subject of a couple of reports about 10 years ago by the Squamish River Watershed Society. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to alert that there is a serious mistake in one of those reports, and it misidentifies the Upper Blind Channel as an area for blue carbon potential. That is, you leave it as blue carbon. In fact, it is a source of methane because it is an accumulated body of organics-laden dredge spoil. So there's kind of some mistaken geography there that we should be aware of. It's a big part of our local geography, is that waterway, and it is filled with organics-laden dredge spoil, and that cannot be classified as blue carbon by definition. It is leaking methane, just the opposite. More importantly,
so I just want to clarify your comment. Does that, in your opinion, is the recommendation, the suggestion under Goal 11 Climate Action, suggestion 11.3J to reflect coastal ecosystems, including blue carbon in marine estuaries, tidal marshes, etc. Does that comment still stand, or are you saying that we have blue carbon work to do elsewhere, or are you concerned with the recommendation she's made here? I just want to clarify that.
With respect to blue carbon, not all of our estuarine areas are created equal, and it's just a point of advice for as we may pursue this further. More importantly, on the next section under J, there is a recommendation for the Regional Growth Strategy Review on protecting forest lands as a climate action measure. And I have a proposed resolution. I'm sorry, I was just about to send it, if I can find it. And I've just done so, that the regional growth strategy Excuse me. I would like to put forward a motion, but I'll just explain it very briefly. I feel that our staff and the SLRD staff should take advantage of the forest management plans and expertise available in our 4 community forest agreements in our regional district. And each of those management plans have sections on climate change. In the Community Forest Management Plan for the Squamish Community Forest, Section 8.10, my concern is that there is a lot of advice and information there that is being missed for the regional growth strategy. It's not just protecting forest lands, there's an active management philosophy, if you like, or recommendation here or discussion of it in these sections. And so I'm suggesting that the regional growth strategy might consider consulting our 4 community forest agreement management plans and the professional personnel that are engaged with those for advice on forest management for the regional growth strategy policies.
So, Councillor, I see you sent us an email with a proposed resolution for consideration. I think I just wanted to make sure that we understand where we are in the process. This particular letter was dated about a month ago, October 4th or 5th or something like that. October 4th. So is that a suggestion that as well as these recommendations that are being sent, or do you see that your recommendation that you have here sitting in opposition to item J?
Mayor Herford, my suggestion is that the purpose of my resolution is to put it forward generally and as an ongoing recommendation, not specifically relating to the contents of this letter. I think it should be, I recommend it as an ongoing practice that the regional growth strategy policies and staff concerned with them, councils concerned with them, if you like, should take the opportunity to consult the expertise and experience available in our 4 community forest agreements and do so ongoing in the future.
Okay, thank you. I think if you're comfortable with this, you're always welcome to make a motion, but I think that Councillor Pettingill, myself, has been Councillor French of late, but I believe soon to be Councillor Stoner again, sit on the regional district board and can bring those concerns to the RGS discussion as that advances, as I'm not entirely certain that has or hasn't happened already as part of the planning. We only received this, the municipality received this and is our municipal feedback, but other interested parties or affected parties would be consulted as well. So we can follow up that way informally if you'd like, or you're welcome to make a resolution to some effect if you would like to take different action.
Mayor Herford, as the regional growth strategy process will be ongoing and it will come back to council, I'm satisfied with your pledge to raise this matter with through our regional district board, if you wish. My general point is that we're missing out if we only emphasize protecting forest land. We've been protecting old growth for 35 years in this district, and it's really not low-hanging fruit anymore. There's much more we can be doing in terms of climate action in our forest management, and it would be disappointing to miss that as it is well identified in the management plans of our community forest agreements. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for that, and I'll take it on to happily take on consulting with our community forests inside the regional district as this RGS is considered. So I'm happy with that. Thank you. Any other questions on this letter or anything? Otherwise, I'm ready to move receipt. Okay, I'll move receipt of the letter, seconded by Councillor French. And just thank you for the extra conversation on this. And I think it's really important that we, I was happy to see it appear on the agenda. And when there's more to say, it's important that we pull it in and have that conversation. I do think that the regional growth strategy is something that Councillor Pettingill was talking about how dry things are, but we get very technical, and with our regional growth strategy is a very important document, and feeds into all the work that we do here in our OCP and so on. So I think it's important that we get those comments correct, and I'm happy to see Ms. McJanet's comments reflected here. I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. The next letter is the main repiping project. You want to start us with that one? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Herford. I'm just going to make a general observation regarding the contents of this letter, which brings to light issues of a plumbing failure in a particular building on Cleveland Avenue. And I think that we should take an interest in these kinds of cases with our green building goals and goals that we've discussed earlier this evening with respect to our building bylaw, is that we should be acknowledging the issue of substandard construction and potential substandard construction as it occurs in our development from time to time. That is, the construction industry goes according to cycles, and from my own experience as a participant in that industry, during some parts of the development cycle, we can have a lot of people working in the industry that are not properly trained, and development or construction projects are constrained by ability to recruit labor, these sorts of things. I have a friend who is a building contractor who lives on the 6th story of a newer building downtown, and when they moved in, the drain pipe was actually built and installed to drain the water into the living room. And that's not acceptable. And we should consider that as part of green building, we are concerned with no gas covenants and other strategies and tactics, but we should be aware of the issues also from a green building perspective, from a climate action perspective in our built environment of poor quality construction. And during the period when this particular building was built was during a very heated environment for our local construction industry. We're just asking for trouble if we aren't mindful of the risks for building quality during these times in the construction cycle. So I'm pointing it out as something that we should be mindful of, along with other energy efficiency tactics in our built environment.
Thank you. I just asked a question of staff. There was a specific ask in here about issuance of a permit, and it's generally in areas we don't get into. Not as generally in areas we don't get into issuing a permit and the quality of applications and so on. But I'm curious if that permit's been issued. So I don't know if we have answer to that, or if staff can come back to us with that out of curiosity. But I'm going to go to Councillor. I just wanted to put that out there. That's what the whispering was off the side. Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I guess, similar to what Councillor Anderson was saying, I know that this building has had a lot of issues since it was built, and I'd just like to know what we can do to address that moving forward in the future as a district, how we can try to avoid these kinds of issues for our residents, and also if there's anything that we can do to expedite this process for the residents, because I know it's been an extremely stressful experience for them.
And I just wanted to point out in the letter, we don't actually know where the holdup is. Often I've seen where there's a holdup somewhere else that gets put to the district. So I don't want to imply that or accept even the argument that is what the holdup is in this particular case. But I do have a curiosity as to where that is. I think the conversation around quality of workmanship or maybe in inspection or professional certification or something is an interesting one. I wonder where we have the ability to, like, this regulation lives in the BC Building Code, this type of thing. Is that correct, Mr. Vonisius?
That is correct. It's something that does occur in complex buildings, in that we review permits and we will review the information, but we don't actually inspect all of the work. We rely on the designated professionals to do inspections and give us reports. And that's how the buildings such as this go through the construction process. And that's for liability purposes, in that there's just a lot of things going on in a large building, and you have to have people on the ground all the time inspecting. And obviously there were issues with this one. So the issue becomes between the property owners and the developer, or the insurance company, or the professionals that were involved in inspecting and signing off on the work.
So I think this one is sort of like, to Councillor Anderson's point, where he brought up, another property that had a challenge, or, we have sort of concerns about when we council's asked to approve a project, that project is going to be, serve its purpose and be built to a high enough standard. Is there an ability to require a higher level of, I don't know what, security, a minimum level of insurance, or a higher level of insurance on like a homeowner's, I don't know what, warranty or something like this? Because this building here, to use this as an example, it's not necessarily exclusively about this, is a relatively new build, and now we're hearing a levy for the residents to address it, even though some of them probably bought on pre-sale even, and expected something that would work. And I know, is there anything that happens in other jurisdictions on this, or is this something we should maybe bring forward at a different time to maybe have a discussion like that? But I just want to know if there is something that can happen, or if things of that nature are reasonable for to live in our regulations, or our process somewhere.
Off the top of my head, I'm not aware of anything that other jurisdictions do differently than what we do, in terms of we rely on certain professionals to do inspections, sign off, and carry the responsibility, essentially. It is something that we can take back and examine a bit further.
Yeah, thank you. I'm extrapolating out some curiosity into like that as a mechanism from the comments of my colleagues here, but also there's a long list of things to do, so I don't necessarily want to direct that. Councillor Anderson.
From my experience in other jurisdictions, mainly in Europe, something like an economic development program or initiative focused on the built environment or on the building supply chain will not only address energy efficiency issues, but they will address local supply chains, training of workers, fostering on the part of local government, with the tools that they have, the opportunities they have to foster training programs, training of local apprentices, that kind of broad level economic development interface with the building industry. Those are active programs in many jurisdictions, and the objective is to foster the quality in the built environment, which is part of building resiliency, and that's part of green buildings that last, and buildings that are affordable in the long run for the consumer as well. Very broad level, if you like. I just thought that we talk a lot about, for example, and not to take offense by it or anything like that, or point to it, but no gas covenants. There's a lot else in our built environment that we should focus on, including the training of workers, the opportunity for their training, and the environment around how we also inspect, but improve the quality of buildings and the process of buildings, and the people behind it and the companies behind it.
Yeah, I think the reason we speak about other things such as no gas covenants is that things like this are implied that they don't happen because they're covered under the BC other legislation, rather than the specific rezone or anything else. But I understand the point you're making, but I don't want to detract from the other points that we make often during a rezoning, because we deal with, it would be inappropriate to deal with BC building code matters at a rezoning time, which is generally the time that we talk about things such as no gas covenants. But I just want to break those two issues apart because they do live in different categories. So with this one, we do have a specific ask from the tenant or from the author of the letter as far as asking us to issue a permit. That's not something that council can do. That's something that staff does, and I know that they always operate with urgency. I do think that this has spurred a little bit of a larger discussion around standards and how we, ensure that take on a lesson from this and see if there is a way to prevent something like this from happening again. So I think there's two-part. One is I think we're ready to move receipt of this, and then what we do with that other conversation is something that I'm curious to see where council sees that, whether it's and likely a discussion for strategic plan or something going forward if we want to take on some sort of investigation into something else that can be done to move this broader topic ahead. Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
I would agree with your comments, Mayor Herford, and if you've made a motion to that effect to receive this letter, I would second that motion.
Yes, I just did that. Thank you for the second. So we'll receive the letter. All those in favor? What's that? Do you want to speak to it? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, happy to support this. Just reflecting on a couple of comments, the Zero Emissions Innovation Center is doing at a, I believe, provincial level, some of the things my colleague was speaking about in terms of training workforces and getting some of the knowledge going in. And just to point out for folks that are watching, we did reduce, I believe, some of our step code requirements to allow the building industry to catch up with green building. I think no gas covenants is a separate issue. We've been building no gas buildings for a long time. So that's really, it's more, I think, in some of the energy efficiency aspects of buildings. And so we have taken steps to allow the industry to catch up. But I think also, it may be time to have another look at the professional reliance model. We've seen at the provincial level and federal level too, where that comes with some big challenges. I understand why we did it and trying to bring down costs and accelerate timelines so that people can get into homes, but there are some challenges and consequences maybe, and so it's maybe worth a discussion. So I look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll call the question. This is just on the receipt matter. All in favor? Motion carries. I think I'll make a motion that we refer a conversation around how do I want to say this? I think the professional reliance is an interesting piece of this. To me, I think also, homeowners like warrant new build standards or warranties or some level of security that this is not a cost borne by the owners of a new property that we've approved. Like that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, but I don't want to limit what mechanisms we use to do that. So maybe did you set your hand? I'm looking for a lifeline. Are you throwing me a lifeline? Go ahead.
Well, I think maybe what the public and we are looking for is possibly where the limits of our jurisdiction is and where we might have some opportunity to act as a council, because I think there's some uncertainty there.
So I think that was that almost a motion, Councillor? Because I think this lives at may need to be part of a strategic plan review, because not knowing the size of a project to investigate if we're using our regulatory authority to the maximum effect in this particular category. And so I would like to refer the topic of quality of the built environment, new builds, and our ability to regulate further to a future strategic plan discussion. I think that covers the types of things we're speaking about here. Are you seconding that, Councillor Pettingill? Okay. I think that's where this broader conversation lives, and not knowing the amount of lift required for that, or if this is something that's easy for our team to achieve, I think we should look at it in that broader context. Councillor Anderson.
Yes, I'll just make the observation that in our last year's financial plan was a special project item that we've dropped due to lack of funding sources, been explained by our Economic Development Department. And that was a proposed examination of the green economy, specifically the building industry. The building industry supply chain from forest to end housing product. That is the kind of opportunity or the kind of study that could give some focus to available training programs and how we might improve the quality standards and development of our local building cluster. We are, after all, importing a lot of trades and labor and materials for virtually every building project in Squamish outside of single-family homes. The entire supply chain is from out of town. That's also a bigger thing to address, and it's part of the quality issue, really, potentially. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call the question. I don't see any other hands for comments on this. So all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. So that looks after the correspondence referred from the consent agenda. We had no minutes referred. We had no business arising from the minutes. No committee minutes or reports. Any notice of motion, council? Seeing none, we have no council or staff and camera announcement. We had no unscheduled public attendance. Open question periods. See no one for open question period. Councillor staff announcements. We're going to start with our Circular Economy Council Challenge, which I was the one that didn't get their homework done on time for this, so I'll speak to it briefly. I didn't take on a particular circular economy challenge. I do commend Councillor Greenlaw for pushing us on this, and I'm sorry to be at the bottom of the heap in this particular topic. I do think it's really interesting, the different ways, having read through the different submissions from council, the different ways that that the circular economy challenge was interpreted, and I really liked actually how open it was, because there was such a varied. It means so many different things, and I know that most of the a lot of my actually all of the clothes that no longer belong in my house go to go to Pearls, just as a matter of business. We try to extend the life of things, and it was really interesting, and also reduce our output, but I didn't have the capacity to document that this month. So I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Greenlaw, who is the spearheaded this mission, to sort of run us through hers.
Sure. Well, I just want to thank everybody who partook in the challenge. It's actually an elaborate ruse of mine to have you all act as my accountability partners so that I do my mending pile. But on that note, I did a few things. I did use this as an opportunity to do some mending this month, but and I wanted to mention this book from the library, Visible Mending, which is a really cool book about prolonging and extending the life of some of your fibers in kind of fun and artistic ways. And then, so I brought some show and tell, obviously, but my project was, I found a linen dress at a thrift store and I deconstructed it. I bought a pattern online from, an independent artist, designer, and, I made my first ever article of clothing through sewing. It's a little bit of a work in progress. I need to do some tailoring after, but huzzah. So that's it. And I did some kind of like embroidery on it. I deconstructed it and I made a whole new outfit out of it. So that was fun. I was pretty happy with the results on that. It was fun to do. And then I also did, like, this is just an example of like what visible mending looks like. Cause I try to wear natural fibers. So they tend to last longer, but they are more expensive. And so I want to kind of increase the life of it. And then I have I have some comments to make after, but I wanted to see what people have to say.
Okay, sounds good. Anyone else want to speak to this one? I know I saw submissions come through. Anyone want to talk about that? Councillor Anderson, you look like you're getting ready. I'm going to pull up Councillor Stoner's and I'll try to read hers.
It seems to me that this was a learning process. Recycling is part of our circular economy initiatives, or should be. But when you think about how to deconstruct some of the materials for recycling, questions pop up, like mixing plastic with paper. And I know from my pulp industry background is that's terrible, and it's very costly for paper recycling industry. A mix of plastic. It's a negative, but I don't know how we address that in the process at GFL or at our other depots. So questions pop up that I wouldn't mind having an opportunity. I will take the opportunity to consult Ms. Shannon White and others among our staff on this, but I'm sure that other people around the community have questions from time to time on recycling. But it certainly came up for me with respect to processing a large volume of office materials where there was mix of plastic and paper, and I endeavored to sort that out. It took a bit of time, but questions arose. So it was an educational experience as well.
Thanks for that. I'm going to take opportunity to read out Councillor Stoner's submission. So as Councillor Stoner's off on parental leave, she'll be back with us actually later this month. So reducing landfill waste one diaper at a time. According to the 2020 District of Squamish Waste Composition Audit, household hygiene is the fourth largest category of waste in the district, accounting for 6.5% of the overall waste, or 696.2 tons. A significant portion of the household hygiene waste category is made up of disposable diapers. It is estimated that an average baby in disposable diapers for the first 2.5 years of life will go through 6,000 to 7,000 diapers, and diapers take approximately 500 years to degrade. Noting that they don't fully biodegrade, but rather break down into small plastic pieces. With a new little one in her family, as I'm reading her item here, in her family, Circular Economy Month reminded her to pull out the cloth diapers that I used with the first child and put them back into use. By no means is this perfect with the use of cloth diapers. They don't end up being used. I'm starting to paraphrase a little bit because it's hard to read someone else's writing. They don't get used, at night or when traveling. But in October alone, they were used for 28 days. Doing some rough math, her estimate is conservatively, she avoided sending 112 diapers to landfill, approximately 20.73 kgs of waste. Cloth diapers come with their own impacts of increased energy use and water use for washing and cleaning, but she makes every effort to wash in cold and hang to dry. I thought that was a great submission, and her email to us all included a cute picture of her newest member of her family. So I thought that was a great initiative as well. Anyone else want to speak to theirs? Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, so I was a little less successful with mine. We had a fairly damp house, and I resolved that by getting a number of dehumidifiers, identical ones. And I guess they are not all super high quality. So one has a broken coil, another has a broken pump, and my thought was maybe I could take them apart and combine them into one working dehumidifier. And that is easier said than done. I took out all the screws, but there's lots of plastic tabs holding it together. I've done my best. I think I've broken a bunch of the plastic tabs. I can see the pump that I want to pull out, but without smashing all the plastic to get it out, I don't think I'm going to be able to. So I haven't completely resigned myself to failure, but it doesn't seem like I'm going to get there. And it's really disappointing. It underscores the importance of some of the right to repair legislation with a few different design choices. It could have been quite easy to pull out the pump and mix and match and have one working item. These units, they were highly reviewed, but on the market for like 2 years, and now you can't get them anywhere. And so they just seem like disposable start to finish kind of thing. And it's really disappointing because there's a lot of metal and weight and plastic and just unnecessary waste.
Yeah, That's a great one, and that right to repair I think is really important. And availability of parts long term is also part of that. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll share that I'm on my second year of using corn byproduct kitty litter. I have 3 cats, and when they were all using traditional sand, clay, whatever those products are, we were putting a lot of very heavy and high volume cat litter into the landfill. And so for 2 years now, corn byproduct and cat waste have been turned into compost at my house. So I don't have a specific project to submit for this year's competition, but I thought I would share that circular economy highlight from my household.
Okay, thank you. Do you have other? Yeah, go ahead.
Of course, I have more comments. I also want to point out that Councillor Hamilton submitted a bunch of the actions that he took this month, which involved stuff like, again, repurposing clothing through going through pearls, also going to ski exchanges, stuff like that. And I also think it's really interesting to see the breadth of projects that people selected, from diverting from landfills, like Councillor Hamilton or Councillor Anderson and Councillor Stoner, right to repair, Councillor Pettengill, upcycling clothing and participating in reuse cycles. And one of the critical conversations of our time is determining how we can change our relationship with our resources. Historically, the colonial economic model has been predicated upon infinite growth in a finite system, which is not only harmful, but is a physical impossibility. So what I believe we're living through now, as we see ecological and biodiversity collapse, is this attempt at infinite growth and therefore infinite consumerism and infinite waste production, basically crashing into the immovable bounds of a finite planetary system. In a lifetime long ago, I worked effectively in mining, and I know of one person who has seen a mineral discovery go to an operating mine in their lifetime. I have friends working on projects that have taken over 8 decades to go from discovery to active mining, which is incredibly sobering to me. Virtually all of our consumables are finite and limited. To my mind, it is absolutely shocking how little focus is placed on reduced resource consumption, prioritizing and upcycling, and consumer protection agencies working on prioritizing quality of build, as we were just talking about with housing, and also, as Councillor Pettengill pointed out, the right to repair. Of course, this all comes down to the capitalistic model of infinite financial growth and profits in a finite system. And it's a lifestyle choice that I think sooner rather than later will become a serious consideration as we try to achieve a more sustainable lifestyle, because frankly, there's no alternative. There is no planet B, and if we aren't smart enough to reform a planet that's been naturally terraforming for billions of years to be an ideal living condition for humans, we certainly are not smart enough to terraform another planet. I don't care what Elon Musk says, though I would like to see him try. So taking the opportunity to think about reducing one's impact on our Earth, our resources, and our landfills is just ultimately beneficial to all of us and generally financially friendly. And in my humble, perhaps isolated opinion, fun.
All right. Thank you for that. So we'll go on to our normal council announcements here. Is there anyone that has any announcements they want to share outside of this? And I'll come to you, but maybe we'll start with Councillor French.
All right, thanks, Mayor. On Saturday, November 2nd, 2 things of interest took place. First, wellness fair for seniors was held at the 55 Activity Center. I was not alone at that, so others may have some thoughts on their experience there. I thought it was a huge success, with booths providing information on services for seniors and entertainment that included line dancing and a group of ukulele musicians. So that same evening, lifelong Squamish resident Jamie Lynn Horth was victorious in her UFC match in Edmonton. This was her second UFC competition win in 3 matches. So congratulations going to our hometown favorite, Jamie Lynn Horth. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Greenlaw.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to the house on Magnolia Drive that went absolutely crazy decorating for Halloween. It was just it became a huge community hub. There were people just hanging out, really enjoying it. And I thought it was really generous of them to put that much effort into something that our community could enjoy. And I also want to thank their neighbors for putting up with it. But yeah, I just thought that was a really nice thing to do for our community. So I wanted to say thank you.
Awesome. I didn't have a chance to check that out. Sounds pretty sweet. Next year. Okay, Councillor Pettingill.
Yeah, just realizing how long it's been since we actually had one of these. So on October 19th was the pumpkin patch, and that was the same day as the atmospheric river. So there was some uncertainty. Folks decided to go ahead and showed up at 7 a.m. the pitch black and pouring rain. But the BIA and a bunch of other community organizations came and made it happen. A smaller crowd than usual, but still a fair number of kids coming to pick up pumpkins and playing in the rain. Some good music, and despite the dampness, it was a great day. So thank you to the BIA for doing what's really become a key fall event. And then that evening, I guess we didn't know that evening, but a former colleague that we worked with here, Jeremy Valeriot, was elected as our next MLA. So congratulations to Jeremy. It was a rather historic win. It's the first time the BC Green Party has elected a candidate on the mainland. So I think a lot to celebrate, and look forward to. I look forward to working with our new MLA in the coming years.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, no, you're good. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, it was, I realized it was quite a gap from last time we had opportunity to have a regular meeting where this agenda item appears. So I'll go back to October 16th. I participated in a clean technology roundtable hosted by MP Weiler and Minister Wilkinson, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. And I know that there's a lot happening in the community on this particular area, but it was quite remarkable to have everyone come together and share with MP Weiler and the minister just what is happening in Squamish and how advanced that technology is, and how ambitious the folks are working in that area. So it was great to participate in the round table, and I'd really like to thank MP Weiler and the minister for their time, and everyone that participated in coming out and sharing what they get up to. I was lucky that this is the second year I've received the ceremonial first poppy from the folks at our local Legion, and so that happened on the 30th, which was great, and it was slashing rain, and we were out by the epitaph in the rain, and I think it's important to mark the occasion and remember our veterans, and I look forward to the ceremony upcoming on the 11th with them. Also that day, I attended one of the coffee with council budget engagement pieces. This one was at the Adventure Center, and I know that my council colleagues have been doing these at various locations. So thank you for taking that on, and to everyone that's been coming out to those. They always lead to some really interesting discussions. And I think I'd also like to take this opportunity to promote the budget event we have coming up on Thursday night, 6 to 8 o'clock, if I have my my timing right, at Brennan Park. So come out and talk about come and see if the budget that we've been working on represents your priorities for the community. So I know I'll have all of our my council colleagues will be there, and and lots of our expert staff that helped inform the budget process. So it really is a lot of resources available. So if anyone's curious about anything, that's a great time to come out, and hopefully we have a lot of folks out there. I was just looking up the date that this happened, but I also here was the community forum. Oh, there it is on the 25th. The House Sound Community Forum happened at Camp Elphinstone. And it's a great opportunity for the communities around Equepsum House Sound to come together and just share what they've been up to. And we have a lot of shared challenges and opportunities. And something that stood out for me was that the communities that have had beaches for a long time or are made up of long stretches of beaches had a lot to say about the challenges of maintaining and operating those beaches and the debris that can wash ashore and the challenges around pollutants in the marine environment in the context of what the ocean ends up sort of coughing up onto the shore. And I think as proud owners of some shiny new beaches, I'd heard them speak about this before at previous community forums, but sort of the scope of it really started to hit home when I could connect that to experiences at our beach. So lots to learn there, and curious to see what impacts we feel and how similar or dissimilar those are to the concerns of some of the folks in attendance. And I did also point out that the Squamish River is likely the source of a lot of material that finds its way onto the beaches of, West Vancouver and beyond. So perhaps we're already exporting that problem, but it was interesting to sort of share that, to make that connection about, to see what we're going to be experiencing as the owners of our new beach. So always a great event. And yeah, I think I'm going to call my updates there. And again, yeah, and thank you. Congratulations to Jamie Lynn Horth. I think that's amazing. There's a fighting spirit and such a well-rounded athlete as well, whether it's Squamish Days running chokers or in the UFC ring or at the ball field or on the soccer pitch or wherever else. And then of course, just walking around town and a great ambassador for the sport and our community, a very down-to-earth human, and I wish her all the success and congratulate her on her latest victory. And with that, I will be looking for a motion to terminate this meeting. Moved by Councillor Greenlaw. I will second that. And all in favor, motion carries. Thank you.